Kevin, your story is wild. I get to hear a lot of stories in what I do.
Yes.
And your book, it takes you on so many twists and turns. I felt like I was reading a screenplay. If your life was a movie,
Yes.
what would the logline be?
Miles Davis has one of my favorite quotes, which is, "It took me years to learn to play like myself."
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it took him years to learn to play like himself because I had a real identity crisis early on. I grew up not understanding why my father hated me so much. And at 18, I figured out why.
So I want to start with the title of your memoir. It's The Bottomless Cup. It sounds like you've spent almost your entire life up until a few years ago searching how to fill it. What was in your cup, or what wasn't in your cup at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a seeker for a long, long time because, when you feel like someone who's despised in your own home when you're growing up, you kind of feel like the only way that you can be loved is out of invention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I created this sort of avatar very early on. If you do that long enough, you end up becoming a stranger to yourself, And so as I was on that search for who I was, I figured out that manic moments gave me dopamine. And so when I wanted to fill my cup up, I would have these grand gestures or these big moments. And I thought that was happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I dropped out of school when I was 19 years old, ended up living in my car in the panhandle of Florida. And I wrote this really beautiful piece of fiction, which was my first resume, which had all these restaurants on it that no one could call for a reference check because they had all mysteriously gone out of business. So, so I walked my way into this job, and instantly that rush of a busy dining room gave me a rush.
Mm.
And so what I figured out was, you know what? I could do this every night and it could be mine. I'm going to throw a party every single night. We're going to clean it up. Then we're going to set it back up again and do it the next day. And I was going to be a party thrower. So I could constantly have this rush of dopamine. And in the beginning, that worked, but I mistook manic moments for happy moments.
Well, fast forward, you've been incredibly successful in the hospitality industry. How many restaurants have you opened?
46.
And counting.
And counting.
You've also been candid that a lot of that success came from that frenzied high that you're talking about.
Sure.
Why did you decide that now was the right time to write this book and talk about all the high and low moments?
Well, first of all, rock bottom is a gift.
Is it?
It is. It is if you survive it. And so there's a million people who are rock bottom and there is no survival. And that goes for depression. It goes for addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, when I survived the lowest of the lows and came out of it, I felt like I had kind of a free spin. I was like, okay, if death is the other side of this, then I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at happiness and try to right the ship. And when I did, I was like, you know what? I'm going to share. I'm comfortable with sharing this story now. And for some reason, I always thought the story was going to hurt my image in some way. This carefully crafted avatar that I had tried to create, which included at times me having a happy childhood. And so now I don't give a shit about the fugazi part of me that used to be out there. I'm more concerned with the real me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm more excited to put the story out there and say, this is actually who I am.
And you decided to write a piece right after your mom passed away.
Yeah.
Was there permission there to sort of put your story out there?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. A little bit, and even though that story didn't delve into everything, my mom passed away the day before restaurants closed for COVID. So if you think of two of the only anchors in my life, my mom and restaurants, both of them went away in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day we couldn't throw a funeral for her because of COVID. We had a dinner at a restaurant that I had in Springfield, Illinois together. And then I had to drive up to Chicago the next day and close down all my restaurants. So I didn't really sleep for like 2 or 3 days. And within my insomnia, I woke up and wrote this piece about her. And I sent it to my publicist, who was also a close friend. And she was just like, hey, do you mind if I send this to Esquire? And Esquire ended up printing it, which sort of led to the book. Mm-hmm. And so there was truth in the story that I wrote, but I left a lot of parts out. And when a book agent saw that story and complimented me on it, he kind of said, hey, pitch me some ideas for a book. And I pitched him 3 or 4, none of which he cared for. And then he said, anything else? And I said, yeah, I have something, but it's pretty personal. And it was one of the first times, maybe the first time I had ever told my full story to a stranger.
How did he react?
He said, that's the book.
That's the book.
I don't even think I got it all out. He goes, this is the book.
So we've been kind of talking around it. We've mentioned Avatar, pain, your mother, your father hating you. Can you start from the beginning?
Sure.
And just kind of share the broad strokes?
My mom was one of 14 kids who grew up on a farm in Roscommon, Michigan. She was farm labor at age 6, beaten by her dad at times, sexually abused by a relative, horrific childhood by any standard. Got away to high school and said, I'm going to be valedictorian of this high school. I'm going to get a free ride to college, and I'm never going to come back to Roscommon, Michigan. And that's what she did. She got a free ride to Central Michigan University. She's very pretty. She sits down in the cafeteria that first week and she goes, I'm going to marry the first nice guy that I meet. Guy sits down next to her in the cafeteria. 4 months later, she's married to him. On her wedding night, he's screaming at her. And she's like, oh, crap. I don't even know this guy. So they have a daughter. She's miserable. And she just thinks, man, these are the cards I've been dealt in life. Maybe happiness for me is not a worldly possession. Maybe I'm going to inherit it later in the afterlife. She answers an ad in the newspaper to write speeches and book travel for an ex-professional boxer who had become a motivational speaker. He's 51, she's 24. He's wildly charismatic. He's good looking. And they have an affair. She gets pregnant. She goes back to the man she's married to and says, I'm going to leave you. And he instantly says, if you leave me, I'll kill myself. And her Protestant guilt gets the best of her. And she stays. 3 months later, she's noticeably pregnant. And they don't say a word about the origin of that baby, even though he must know it's not his because they haven't been together in a long, long time.
Wow.
So the baby comes out. His name fraudulently goes on the birth certificate. That's me.
You're the baby.
I'm the baby. So as soon as I come out, all he sees is that man. And so when he looks at me, he doesn't see a son. He sees an enemy. He sees somebody who ruined his life. And I pretty much felt that all the time. So you're a young kid and all you want your dad to do is love you, be proud of you. And I just always knew he had a real problem with me.
How did you know?
Well, first of all, he wasn't shy about it. He would tell me that I was an idiot and a loser pretty much constantly. I remember a moment where I thought I'd solved it. I was watching Little House on the Prairie, and Charles Ingalls was swinging an axe, and my dad was like, you know what? I need an axe because I got to chop down that willow tree that had died in our backyard. And I went to Mom and I go, Mom, I know what I'm going to get Dad for Christmas. I'm going to get him an axe. This is like my prescient hospitality skills very early in life, you know? And she's like, that's a great idea. We go to Sears and we buy him an axe. And you know, when you wrap something like an axe, you can already tell it's an axe.
Yeah.
It's under the tree and he opens it and he was actually, hey, this is thank you. This is really great. And I'm like, that's all it took. An $8 axe from Sears. And I have solved our relationship. And I was so happy that I made him happy that I kept bringing it up. Like, you really like it? And at one point he was just like, he goes, enough. You know, you're going to make your sister feel bad about her gift. And it quickly just turned. And I knew very early on there was going to be no way that I was going to make this guy happy. And so at a certain point, we were just sworn enemies.
And your mom never said a word to you?
Never said a word to me. You know, when we talked about it later and she was right, she was like, I was just afraid if I told you there was going to be this moment where you're going to be like, well, oh yeah, well, you're not my father.
Yeah.
And she was dead on right. And she was just trying to keep the peace the best she could.
So fast forward, you're 19 and you have this job for the first time. And how are you feeling about yourself?
Well, something had happened a year before that, 3 days before I left to go to college. My real father had come and found me and taken me out to breakfast and had said, your whole childhood's a lie. I know from your mom that you never cared for your father much. So perhaps it's helps you to know that I'm your father.
Do you remember that moment so vividly?
I remember how uncomfortable it was because you instantly what you're doing is you're rewinding and you're thinking, oh crap, this is why he hated me. And I can't believe my mom didn't tell me. And how am I supposed to feel now? This guy's a stranger to me. I feel awkward around him. And so I was just like, it was like that moment where the beads of sweat start coming down your face. I was in a full flop sweat in probably within like 5 minutes, red face, red neck. And I remember the server coming over and she's just normally doing her job. Can I get you more water? And I was like, will somebody take me home? I need to go home. And he was like, are you sure? Can we talk about this? It's like, no, take me home. And so I just wanted to be alone. So he dropped me off at my car and I literally ran to my grade school parking lot for an hour and a half. I knew what time it was and I knew my Larry, who raised me, was at the house because he always came home for lunch. So I just had to sit and wait it out in the parking lot by myself and just like think about all this stuff. Being
alone in a parking lot is really depressing imagery. Did it feel as depressing?
It did. I was just trying to figure it all out. My mom had always been my hero parent. And so to feel like I'd been betrayed by her then threw my whole life out of whack. And what it did was it turned me pretty rebellious for a little while because I was like, well, you know what? Fuck everybody. And so I was so happy that I was leaving. Those 3 days in between that moment and leaving for school couldn't happen fast enough. And so I was just scarce those last 3 days. And I drove myself to college. My folks didn't come up with me and I was gone and I was like, get me out of here.
Sometimes in memoirs, when people write about their childhood, I'm like, want to fast forward to the next part. Not your book. You write about your childhood so vividly. Do you remember or do you have any inclination of like the earliest seed of your childhood? What was the earliest seed of the person you became?
I wanted peace in my house. I was a peacemaker and I liked to have a good time and I liked making people happy. And my house was the exact opposite of that. And it was also 700 square feet with a bunch of hard surfaces. So there was this, cacophony of arguing and, consternation constantly. And I knew that once people had food in their mouths and drinks on the table, that everybody would shut the hell up.
Oh, wow.
And so it would be like an argument would start between my mom and my dad or me. And I'd be like, hey, time for dinner. Let's go. Let's get some stuff on the table.
Time for lasagna.
And I would help in the kitchen. And I would just try to separate people and get to the dinner table. And our dinner tables were pretty quiet, people just eating as fast as they could. And I knew as soon as I got done with that, I washed the dishes and then I got out of there. So those seemed to be the most peaceful moments when we were sitting at a dining room table.
Selling tomatoes door to door. You built fake restaurants with your sister.
Yes.
Take me back to your very first cup of coffee. How old were you when you had it?
First cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I was 14 or 15 years old.
You were?
Well, I was intrigued by flavors of all types. So if I saw adults doing it, I wanted to try it and see what it was. And so you also get a nice buzz of caffeine. I didn't need any more energy than I already had, but that really put me over the top. So I was so fascinated by things that wealthy people did. I would watch Dynasty, and I'd be like, why is Alexis Carrington so fascinated with this caviar? What does it do to people when they put it in their mouths, you know?
Interesting.
And so, yeah, food was, even though we weren't eating fancy food, my mom had been a farmer, and we had a garden plot that the city of Springfield donated this part of land out by Sangamon State University where you could have your own garden plot for free. And my mom let me grow whatever I wanted to grow. So I grew tomatoes. And because we didn't have a lot of money, and I had these chili bowl haircuts and bad jeans and hand-me-down Goodwill clothes, I was like, I'm going to sell these tomatoes. So I, in my driveway, 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents, 25 cents. There's a picture in the book of me sitting at the end of my driveway. And the first time I ever sold tomatoes, I made $10. And I was like, Mom, you're not cutting my hair anymore. I'm going to the hair affair. I'm getting a proper haircut.
You knew it was a bad haircut.
I knew it was a bad haircut because I was getting teased. So there's this moment in my life where I'm not popular in my home. I'm not popular at school. And one of the things that I knew that I could do to change that was my own industriousness. So I got a paper route. I sold tomatoes, working at Hardee's when I was 15 years old. I always had a job and I always had cash in my pocket, all the way up to when I was 18 years old. I was the kid with the fake ID going to get kegs and throwing the keg parties. And my cake parties were organized, man. I had initials on the bottoms of my solo cups. So somebody would show up with their own solo cup. And I'm like, Scott, I don't remember you buying a cup for me. Let me see the bottom of that cup, pal. He'd be like, sorry, bro, here's $3. So I was just trying. If I had money in my pocket, to me, that equaled freedom. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like being poor. I didn't like not having any money. It made me feel trapped. And to this day, the jailed me is a bad me. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to look at why I was such a nomad when I was a kid, why I opened up my own business, why I didn't want to work for anybody, it all comes from these patterns that were built by that childhood.
How long did you feel like that kid with bad jeans and a bad haircut?
I think I did until I started having, a little bit of that always existed, but then there's a moment when, you get to go out on a date with a pretty girl and you're like, okay, maybe I've turned the tide a little bit.
That's funny.
I remember kissing a very pretty girl in high school and saying, hey, maybe things have changed a little bit.
Maybe I threw on a pair of Levi's and made it all better.
Yeah, Levi's and that haircut made it all better. That's fascinating. I'm still the same kid.
The book reveals that your entire identity was built around this avatar that you made up to outrun the truth of your childhood.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier. Can you paint me a picture of who that avatar was? Because I get this very clear picture of who that kid, Kevin, was.
I'll tell you an embarrassing story that's not in the book. Somebody from my fraternity at college happened to be in my hometown, and we went out. Instead of having him drop me off at my little tiny house, I had him drop me off at a house that was a block over that was bigger.
Yeah.
Because I had created this whole thing about who I was.
You told people stories in college.
I told people stories in college. There was no mention of like me hating my dad or what happened or my father not being my father or anything like that. I wanted to be a very, very normal kid. Normal kid, parents were successful. Here's who I am, and my fraternity specifically was filled with people that were very successful and knew exactly who they wanted to be, which made me feel even worse about myself, which probably ultimately led to me dropping out.
Wow.
One of my housemates at school is one of the most successful astronauts in history. So I remember meeting him and, he was an aeronautical engineering major. And I'm like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to be an astronaut. And you're like, whatever. There's been 400 of those, right? And one night, another one of my housemates was asking me, he's like, wait a second, you're pre-law? He goes, I don't think you're a lawyer, man. And I was like, I think you're right. I don't think I am either. And he's like, well, why are you doing that? And I don't know. Fear disguised as practicality.
Yeah.
And he goes, what do you really want to do? And I was like, man, it's kind of cheesy. And he's like, what is it? I was like, I want to own my own restaurant. And he goes, well, why aren't you doing that? I go, no money. I don't know anybody. just doesn't seem realistic. And he goes, Kevin, Mike thinks he's going to be an astronaut. I was like, touche.
Yeah.
But there were people in my school that were dreamers who were already manifesting who they wanted to be. And that type of behavior is contagious.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, yeah, maybe I can drop out. And at a certain point, my real father was coming up to the University of Illinois, and he would just show up. I would get out of class, and he would be sitting there like on a park bench. And then my mom took a job in the same town that I went to school and was commuting from Springfield to Champaign. And my father, who raised me, Larry, was also coming up there. And at one point, my head almost exploded. And I just one day took off. I was like, that's enough. That's enough of this life.
How do you make sense of all three of them kind of checking in on you, especially Larry? Like, you were like, dude, you hated me my whole life.
Larry was regretful. My mom adored me. Woody was regretful. Woody was getting older and knew that he had watched me from a distance all these years. It must have been hard on him. Mm-hmm. And now he wanted me to just instantly feel like he was my father.
Did you look like him?
I did, but I couldn't flip the switch of just loving him. And with Larry, he was too far gone. Once you go through the things that I had gone through with him, this is a guy that, hit me in the face when I was 8 years old. I was like, there was no going back with him. Maybe someday I could find something with him, but our relationship for all intents and purposes at that point was dead. Mm-hmm. And as much as I loved my mom, I felt suffocated. And I just got to the point where it's like, man, I'm going to go all in on me. Whoever this new me is, mm-hmm. I'm going to create this new me that doesn't have to deal with all of this baggage. And so all I wanted to do was pretend that all that didn't exist. And so I needed a new town to create the new me. Mm-hmm. None of these people know me. They're not going to know anybody to ask questions. The fake resume was symbolic of everything that I was trying to do.
It's interesting for me to hear you talk about each of these people and feel your energy. It's different when you talk about each one of them.
I adore my mother.
You adore your mother. What I'm feeling...
I feel sorry for Larry. I never knew Woody well enough.
Why the emotion and the tears for Larry?
I so desperately wanted him to like me. That never went away.
So the tears are really for you.
Maybe. And for him. I know at the end, I actually finished my book and I had turned it in, and Larry had a heart attack. And my sister called me and said, Larry died for several minutes last night, but they revived him. And she said, I'm just letting you know. She didn't say, come down. She left that up to me. And I called my therapist and she said, what are you going to hope you did 5 years from now? Seems very simple, but it's a great question in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to hope that I'm going to wish that I went down there, mm-hmm. even if it was just to support Missy. So I drove to Springfield, and on the middle of the table was a letter from Larry, a 7-page letter. That was an apology letter. It was not an apology about his treatment to me when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. It said nothing of him not being my father. It was very specifically about him never really getting to know me or my kids. And he said, I know you don't talk to me anymore, and I know why. And I'm sorry. And I was able to go to the hospital and forgive him and say, I forgive you. I think I wrote in the book that when I told him that I loved him, because I wasn't sure if I really did or not, mm-hmm. that it felt like throwing a curveball with a broken arm. It did. It was not easy to push out of my mouth. I had not told him that I loved him since I was a very little kid.
Yeah.
And I had never said it to my real father. And I was like, it's what he needs to hear. And what the hell, just do it. So I did.
How do you feel in hindsight?
Good. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did. And like 20 minutes later, Crazy Larry came out, and I was telling my sister a story about me running in the Tough Mudder and ending up in the medic tent. And then he goes, "God damn stupid moron move per usual." And my sister and I just laughed about it. And Missy goes, "Go in the hallway." We went in the hallway. She's like, "Well, we're not crazy. He's still Larry." It's still him. I'm
missing the years where you really found a version of yourself from 19 on. Talk to me about that time period.
Yeah. Well, one, I found my people. So I went into restaurants and I met these people in restaurants, and I became, so intrigued about food and wine, hospitality and service. And then I met the restaurant people, and I go, wait a second, these people are smart. They know a lot about food and wine and music, and they're dangerous. I mean, they go out to like 4 a.m. And I'm like, they're cool, man. I mean, like everybody else is boring compared to these people. So I was like, okay, I can hang with these folks. And so that was fun. Those first few years where I was saving all that money up, and like I met the girl that I opened up my first restaurant with, and I found my running buddies and friends. And yeah, and I didn't need to sleep much. So I would go and I would sprint hard on the dining room floor. And then I would go straight from the dining room floor to the bar, from the bar to the bed. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd run 6 miles. I was a maniac. I was a total maniac.
Were you experiencing highs and lows at this time?
Yeah, I would still experience all the crashes. And so the running was part of like the crashes, because I would wake up and I would be hungover and I would feel like I wanted to die, and I would go run and I'd get some endorphins and I'd feel a little better, and I'd feel terrible till work. And then work would make me feel better again. And then as soon as I started to crash, then I would add some tequila to the equation, and then I would feel better again. And it was just like, and I was like, well, I guess if I just keep doing this for 40 years, I mean, what could go wrong?
You felt like it was fine. Like you had found the potion.
Yeah. I was like, oh, well, this is fine. This is not unhealthy. What's 5 to 7 margaritas a night between friends? I mean, it's like, and then that gets to be a little bit more. But I knew I was pretty good at it. And I instantly just...
What made you good at it?
I didn't have very good technical skill in the beginning, as far as, wine service or being able to talk about, terroir and what great wines were and the characteristics of the individual Pinot Noirs on the list. And I wasn't good at table maintenance, and I wasn't serving from the left side with my left hand yet. And all these technical skills that I had not learned, but I still got a ton of call tables. General manager was baffled by it. He would tell me, he goes, "You are not a great server. Well, I don't understand why you get 8 freaking call tables a night." My emotional intelligence is good, and I was really concerned with people having a good time. Then I was able to catch up on the technical skill part of it. So as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, I can open up my own restaurant. I looked at the people I was working for. I was like, these people sort of know what they're doing, but I don't think they know what they're doing a whole lot more than I do. I think I can go do this. So I went and opened up a 6-table restaurant on the money I'd saved up with my girlfriend at the time. And we went to work.
How do you look back on that time?
Oh my God, it was just absolute and total chaos. And it was so poorly drawn up. I mean, we opened for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and there was 2 of us, which means you'd get there at like 6 a.m. and work till like midnight. We dropped breakfast pretty quickly because it wasn't sustainable. But her and I had deeply fallen for each other. But we're both pretty hot-blooded. And so instant way to ruin a good relationship, open up a restaurant together. So we ran hot, because sometimes there'd be 40 people in our dining room, and it was 2 of us washing dishes, serving, prepping, cooking. She was the chef on the line. I would have the cold station. We would both wash dishes, and she had a daughter, and her daughter was underneath the
Oh my God.
underneath this counter we had with a little TV VCR combination watching The Little Mermaid. It was wild. It was absolute insanity. And so, but for those first 6 months, I wrote something in my journal, and it was like, not sure if this business will ever fill my pockets, but it sure as hell fills my soul.
Wow.
And I was pretty poetic for a 21-year-old kid. And so I was happy. I was like, and it was mine. I could go out and people would be like, oh, what do you do for a living? And I was like, oh, I own Lazy Days Cafe. That made me feel so good. I had something that was me.
Yeah. You weren't saying like, I'm waiting tables at this restaurant.
Correct.
Or that
I could tell Larry
restaurant.
that.
Yeah.
I'm a restaurant owner.
That's big.
It was big.
So how does one cafe turn into 46
It's a good question.
restaurant openings?
Well, you find out at a certain point, the size of our restaurant was a really bad size. We didn't have great weather conditions in our restaurant. It was like a back deck that had like plastic Viz Queen wrapped around it with a kerosene heater. If it got really cold, we were kind of screwed. And so Seaside, Florida became very popular. Somebody bought that building and they bought us out. And I went up the street and I go, what are my 3 favorite things? Well, I love sushi, I love wine, I love rock and roll. 100 wines by the glass, sushi till 3 o'clock in the morning, live rock and roll 7 nights a week. Now that sounds like, oh, what a cool concept. In the Panhandle of Florida in 1995, it was just downright weird.
Really?
Yeah, it was a weird concept, but people dug it.
That's cool.
And there was only a couple places to drink late night on 30A, which is now kind of a famous road. And we killed it. It was busy and I was having a blast. And I probably would have stayed there a long time, but somebody came, made me an offer to buy it. And I guess I was like, I guess I'm flipping restaurants. I still wanted more. It was still stuck together with bubblegum and Scotch tape. And I was like, I want something just a little nicer, something that feels a little more real. And weirdly enough, I took the money I made off of that and I went back home to Springfield, Illinois. And I said, okay, I'm going to show everybody what I've done. I was also kind of, I was like this also ran kid in Springfield. I was a kid on the other side of the tracks who went to not the best high school and lived in a little house. And I wanted to go back and say, I'm going to open up the best restaurant in Springfield, Illinois. And, maybe I can buy in some respectability in my hometown.
And make Larry proud.
Make Larry proud. And I told Mom to quit her job. I go, quit your job at TJ Maxx and come do this restaurant with me. And she did.
Were those special years?
It's very special. Very special because my mom was so hardworking and so smart. And if you gave her a project, she was going to do it 10x better than you drew it up.
Right.
And she was brilliant.
You said your mom hid from the world most of her life and only found peace and purpose after 2019 when she got her cancer diagnosis. You describe it as the best time of her life.
She described it as the best time
she
of her
described
life.
it, excuse me. And it's because she found out how people really loved her. That's hard for me to wrap my head around.
No, it's a heartbreaking statement because I interviewed her and I asked her, I said, Mom, what was the turning point of your life? She said, after I got diagnosed with cancer, I found out that people really loved me and weren't just tolerating me.
Wow.
And I was texting this back and forth with her and I cried. I just was like, Mom, God, it's so, she really did think that her whole life, that she was so hard to love. I started reading her diaries after she died and I couldn't read them, and my therapist said, don't read them.
Really?
She was like, they were never meant for anybody else to read. They were meant for her to read. And she said that's how she was feeling at that exact moment. It doesn't mean that she felt like that all the time.
Did watching her find peace towards the end of her life influence your process at all?
It did. I think that because she really did seem so zen and it was the best version of her that I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. Even with me, my mom was not super excitable, and she threw around compliments like manhole covers. And so for the first time, she was saying stuff like, you really amaze me. And it was this really sweet version of my mom. And I was like, it proved that there is evolution with people, and that you can get better. And my whole life, I knew there was something wrong with me, but it took me a long time to figure that out. I remember being a kid, when you get in bad moods a lot or you get dark a lot, you just think everybody's like that. It's a Herculean leap to go from I'm in a bad mood sometimes to I'm bipolar. And so my mom was definitely bipolar. So, as I looked back on it, I was like, oh my God, my mom had it worse than I did. And her mom had it. My mom always talked about how depressed her mom always was.
Wow.
So the first time I ever went to a therapist when I was 27, I went when I was 27. I didn't go to a therapist again for 23 years. I went one time. She was an hour and a half evaluation. She goes, Kevin, I think you might be bipolar. And I told her to go F herself. I was like, you don't know me.
Did it stay in the back of your mind?
A little bit. I was like, you don't know me. I'm not bipolar. And people people throw bipolar around a lot as like a dig on somebody, right? That they're like, oh man, she's crazy. She's bipolar.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, it was like somebody telling me that I was crazy. And I was like, no. That's my mom and dad are bipolar. Haven't you seen my life? My life's amazing. I get in a bad mood every once in a while.
You write in the book, ambition and adrenaline was your drug of choice. So how did you learn the difference between this healthy drive and what you didn't know at the time was bipolar disorder?
There's the laws of diminishing returns with anything. And so every time I opened up a restaurant, had the big opening, it was like up here, and then it was here, and then it was here, and then it was here. And so I knew that wasn't giving me the same response that it used to. But then, when you're standing on a ledge in Los Angeles, getting ready to jump, you start to realize that everything you thought was true was not true. And that all the things that you had done didn't really mean anything. If you were miserable and sad and wanted to die and wanted to check out, and your life felt so bad that you were willing to leave your family and your friends and leave this earth, then pretty much everything that you were doing was probably wrong. It's a tough thing to think that all the stuff I've done all these years right now means absolutely nothing. And that was the rock bottom. And that was the gift.
Do you think that's true? That
it was a gift?
No, that it meant nothing?
No, not now.
Yeah.
Not now, because it kept me alive. So once the dust settled and I was able to look back on it, I was like, okay, first of all, 1, there's been a lot of great things that you've done in your life. 2, you have had a lot of really joyful moments that you helped produce. 3, you've done a lot of things that have helped people throughout your life. And you have provided a lot of beautiful experiences for people. And the problem was I just wasn't doing it in the right way. I needed to be a part of it again so I could, in a way that I could feel it again. I wasn't feeling it. I'd become numb. I wasn't feeling it anymore. So I've been an extremist my whole life. And so coming off that ledge, I was like, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at happiness. If somebody's done it for happiness, I'm going to try it. I know.
Because you had thrown in the kitchen sink on every restaurant, every project you've ever worked on. And this time you chose happiness.
This time I've thrown it in myself.
Yeah.
I had done all this for business and all those things my whole life. And I'd done a bunch of superficial stuff, but I was like, the real work. What is the real work that I'm going to do? So that was, in the beginning, therapy 5 days a week, stopping drinking. I stopped walking dining rooms and being around people for a series of months. Went to both my companies and both my C-suites and said, leave me alone for a while. I told him to leave me alone for a while. And the next day, like several people called me and I was like, I don't think you heard me yesterday. Leave me alone.
Really meant it.
I really meant it. I did ayahuasca. I did bufo. I got on medication. And I went to Hoffman. And I know you've talked about Hoffman before, and you want a big heaping spoonful of self-awareness, go to Hoffman. It's not just about you. It's about you. It's about your parents. And this idea that 90% of who you are is because you either tried to emulate or rebel against a parent. With me, it was so true.
Why do you think you were so open to everything this time?
Because the alternative was dying. I had come to a point in my life where when I got on a plane, and if there was extreme turbulence, I'd be pretty okay with this plane crashing right now. That's a bad place to be. Or when I got really anxious and really stressed out, my mantra was, if it gets any worse, you can just kill yourself. I mean, what a terrible, dangerous, awful place to be. And so,
wow,
I'm going to try everything. And I was hoping something would stick, but this was all stuff I'd never tried before. There was some low hanging fruit there. Mm-hmm. Therapy was some low hanging fruit. Medication was really low hanging fruit.
Wow.
And my therapist asked me, she goes, why do you think that you've never done this stuff? You try everything else. Why do you think you've not done this? And it came back to Larry only believed in the traditional ways to get somewhere. You go to college, you get a degree, this is what you do. You pay your taxes, you get life insurance, you get married at a young age, you have 2 children. And I wanted to be the opposite of him. My rebellion from him was, I'm not going to do anything traditional. And so I was like, I don't need therapy. I'm going to go float in a tank for an hour. I was starting to hurt myself in my rebellion against him.
Do you remember the first moment that you thought, I've made it, and what that feeling was like versus the feeling now when you're sitting and like you've really made it? Yeah,
I guess when, in my profession, the James Beard Award is like the biggest thing that you can win.
Yeah.
My partner and I won Outstanding Restaurateurs in America in 2019. And man, for about a week, everything was right in the world. It was like, oh, wow. It's kind of like my mom. I was like, wow, people do like me, oh, thank God, and I reached this pinnacle and nobody can take that away from me. And I felt like I made it. I was like, man, that's my Oscar, It lasted for about a week.
Yeah.
The really making it was in the last year.
You found that peace that you were looking for in your house all along.
It was a very quiet moment. I had finished my book and I was sitting in my house, my new house that I really love. And I was listening to Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, and my girlfriend was there. And I was just having the most beautiful, peaceful night. And I just thought to myself that I was really happy. My whole life had been about creating these giant, loud moments. I lived a really loud life, and I found happiness in the quiet. Miles in the background. Miles Davis Kind of Blue was the album I opened service with every single night. That album was at Lazy Days. Start with So What. And it was just playing in the background, sort of the soundtrack of my life. And so, but instead of working a room this time, I was just sitting with myself.
I think it takes a lot of courage to write a book while you're still kind of going through all of the feelings.
I was writing the book while I was living it.
I know.
And so sometimes once I got to like chapter 13, It was no longer the past I was writing about.
Yeah.
I was writing about while it was happening.
That's sort of my question, because you don't get that a lot. A lot of people write in hindsight, and I understand why they do it. Why did you choose to write, to quote Brene Brown, in the messy middle?
Well, there had to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when I started writing the book, I hadn't figured it all out yet. I was in the mess at that point. And so I was hoping something was going to happen, that was going to button it all up. And honestly, I'd written the ending before Larry passed away. And, I remember, I think it was my publisher's like, you have to take the book back, right? Life just kept happening. Thank God. And it was like I was writing in a journal.
Some of those loud moments that you mentioned, your life seems so rooted in connection, and you have such great stories. Can you share a story from your restaurant life that really means something to you?
One of my favorites is at the Indigo Wine Bar in the mid-90s, a man, it was his wedding anniversary. And on his wedding night, his father had given him a bottle of 1961 Chateau Lafite. And so he came to me and said, hey, this is really special today. We're going to open this bottle. 61 Lafite's one of the most expensive and most renowned bottles of wine in history. 1929, 1945, 1961, 1982, the best years in Bordeaux. And 61, this is a multi-$1,000 bottle. The invitation to the wedding anniversary was a picture of the bottle. It represented his father being there that night because his father had passed away. So he brought it to me about 45 minutes before the party started for me to decant it. We were going to display it. He had a podium. We were going to put it on it. And I go to open up the bottle of wine and it's corked. He had stored it all these years and it was bad. And he cried in front of me. He couldn't believe it, like hysterically crying. And I was like, sir, what if I replace it with one of these bottles up here? And he's like, Kevin, these people are super wine savvy. They're going to know that this bottle right here is not that 97 Silver Oak. I was like, wait. I go, there's an old man here who has this incredible wine cellar, and he's so sweet and such a romantic. He goes, Kevin, I don't have the money to buy that. I go, just hold on a second. I call my friend up and he goes, hold on. Comes back. He goes, I don't have a 61, but I have a 66. I was like, I'll be there in a second. How much do you want for it? He's like, $100 cash money. Drive my car, race down there and grab the bottle of 66, $100 down, go back, decant that bottle. It's perfect. We rinse out the bottle of 61, pour it out, put it next to the decanter, throw away the bottle of 66. And right when I do that, everybody comes into the room. He pours wine for everybody and he tells this beautiful story about his father. Everybody's crying in the house. And then everybody tries the wine. And the whole chatter is about, this is the greatest glass of wine I've ever had in my entire life. And he comes over to me. He pours me 2 ounces of the wine and he puts his hands on my cheeks. He kisses me on both cheeks and he goes, you are a beautiful liar, young man. He goes, my father would have loved this story. And I completely changed the temperature of what would have been a disaster. And I was like, this is my purpose in life. I get to play a cameo role in people's lives, sometimes really big moments. And I'm that guy that comes in for a second and can steal the scene and then dart back out. And so then I became obsessed with finding those moments where I would dart in.
I've never heard anybody put it that way. And I love that because we all have the opportunity to do that. You mentioned purpose. You faced homelessness, bankruptcy. You've dealt with being bipolar, divorce. And there's some trials that I haven't even named in that list. You've opened 50 restaurants and you've become a leader in the Independent Restaurant Coalition. People in hospitality idolize you. Like you say your name in hospitality and people's eyes light up.
I'm not sure about that, but
they do.
Yeah.
Those are some highs and lows.
Yeah.
What did the lows teach you about purpose?
The lows taught me that if I don't protect and restore myself, that I'm not going to be able to restore other people moving forward. If that's really what I want to do, if my purpose is restoration, then I have to constantly set boundaries and set rules for myself that allow myself to be restorative. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life right now, this second. Thank God. And so it still allows me to do some pretty great things when I have those moments where I know I can like dart in for a second.
It's interesting for me to hear that you've never been happier, because you said it's actually never been harder to be happy. You said it's never been harder to be happy.
Yes.
I think that statement will resonate with a lot of people.
Yes.
I have a weird relationship with that statement, Kevin.
Okay.
And I don't know why I do, but I want to better understand.
Okay.
Because I think most people would agree with you.
I got some hacks for it though.
Okay.
Well, one is I treat my pantry and I treat my social media feed the same way.
Right.
If I keep junk food in my pantry, I will eventually eat it. If there's Doritos in there, there is going to be some night where it's like 1:30 in the morning. I'll be like, fuck it. Give me the Cool Ranch Doritos. If I keep stuff on my feed that is bombastic or negative, or I keep it on there because I like to be outraged sometimes, I will carry that energy with me all day. And so I put both of those things on a diet. I only keep things in my pantry that I think serve me, and I only keep things in my feed that I think serve me. And my feed isn't just my social feed. It's also the people that I converse with and talk to on a daily basis. And so I challenge everybody out there to look at everything in their life, including the contagious behavior that they surround themselves by with people. I don't hang out with the exact same people that I used to hang out with, but fuck, I've added some real beauties in these last few years, man. And there are a couple people that know me only as the person that I am now.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so they don't have an expectation level set of me as the old me.
What is that like?
Well, I went a year without drinking. This is, I'm not drinking right now, but like when I first did it, and this is like maybe 2022, I went a year, and I decided to have some drinks because we had something to celebrate. And afterwards I went to a friend's birthday and they were pouring tequila shots. And she looked at me and she's like, too bad you're not drinking. And I was like, actually, I am drinking tonight. She's like, and I took a drink and she put her hands on my cheeks and she goes, yes, I love drunk Kevin. And I looked at her and I go, everybody loves drunk Kevin except for drunk Kevin. It was one of these moments where it was just like, and yes, I continued to drink that night. And then the next day I was like, damn it. And since that time, I haven't had a night where I went off the rails like that. And like, and I haven't had a drink in months and months. It just doesn't serve me anymore. But like, there was a certain amount of people that were like, come on, give me tequila, Kevin. He's a blast. And I'm like, hey man, sober Kevin can be a lot of fun too. I heard Rob Lowe say that he thought when he got sober that he was never going to have fun ever again.
Oh, wow.
That's what his original thought was. And I guess I thought about that a little bit too, that I wasn't going to be able to have fun if I was sober. It's so wrong, man. I'm having so much more fun in this version of myself than I did that old version of myself.
So you say that your actual rock bottom is a supreme gift and that all the supposed rock bottoms before it were fucking pretenders. I love when I have to read people's quotes and they make me curse. What is the difference between a real rock bottom and a pretend one?
Well, the pretend one is one that you go back and just keep doing the same behavior.
Okay.
So a lot of people have back problems. They go to the chiropractor. Chiropractor adjusts them. But the problem is they stand in a certain way or one leg's longer than the other. And so it just goes back to the same problem again. The guy adjusts you. And this is the whole financial model for chiropractors, right? Instead, how about get orthopedic shoes or really correct the problem or go get surgery or what have you? A lot of times with alcoholics or addicts, and I've listened to Dax Shepard talk about this before, that he has like 36 entries in his Alcoholics Anonymous book that were all the times he thought he hit rock bottom until he finally hit rock bottom. And so for me, I kept going through these moments where I felt like I wanted to die, or I had, suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go back and do the same behavior. Then I'd feel okay again. I'd go back to the same behavior and I'd end up in the same place. I finally had to fix it at its foundation.
Yeah.
So if you're going through anything, depression, addiction, just general malaise and unhappiness, usually you have to go 20 steps backwards to go 50 steps forward. And most people aren't courageous enough to take that bargain. They're like, I already feel like crap and you want me to get worse? What are you talking about? And that's where I was for a long, long time. And then when you have a moment like I did in Los Angeles, I was like, if I don't really correct it at its core, I'm gonna die.
What led to the moment in LA?
In successive order, my mom passed away. We closed all of our restaurants. My partner and I had to borrow basically $6 million just to keep our company afloat, because we had like $10 million a year in rent alone. We had a couple thousand employees that, we still paid for everybody's insurance, made sure everybody was intact. We were burning money at a rate that we were only going to be able to be open for so long. And then there would be like some government intervention, and then we would use all of that, and then it would start up again. Every day felt like I was going to step on a landmine. And then there were like little moments where it seemed like everybody was also turning their guns on the restaurant industry. Somebody wrote some terrible blog post about us, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I just felt like my marriage was crumbling, and I felt like everybody was turning their guns on the restaurant business, and I didn't have my mom to call, and I didn't know if we were going to stay in business or not. And I was having a nervous breakdown. And I also didn't have my restaurants to go into that were a joyous place. The restaurants felt like fear. And so I was in Los Angeles. I'd had a bad meeting. We were trying to open up a restaurant there. We were in the middle of building a restaurant during the pandemic, and we couldn't even open it. And we were bleeding money. And I went and sat at the bar at the hotel and had like 15 drinks. And I woke up in the morning and I was terribly hungover and terribly depressed. And I just sat there and decided I was going to kill myself. I was trying to figure out which way I was going to do it.
Sorry you were in pain like that. That's awful.
Yeah. I was, and it's funny where the mind goes when things like that happen. First thing I thought of is, what's the saddest song that I can put on that helps make this progress go faster?
Wow. Because
I'd already decided I wanted to do it, and I wanted to feel as bad as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And I played that song on repeat for about 2 hours. And my saving grace was I stood on a ledge and I lifted my hands off of it to jump. And for the first time in 2 hours, my phone rang and it stopped the song.
Who called?
Nobody of circumstance.
You mentioned 2 quotes in the book that help you heal that
Yes.
I really, really love. The first, can I share it or do you want to share it?
Sure.
The magic you're looking for is in the work you are avoiding.
Yes.
And the second is,
everyone is responsible, but no one is to blame.
How did those mantras help you move forward?
Well, these both came later in life. One of my low points, somebody looked at me, and it was one of those where you kind of get punched in the face by somebody really giving you the truth. And they're like, Kevin, you can keep going on these like silly hiking trips and thinking this is healing you. But if you really want to be well and you really want to be happy, do the work, asshole.
Who was saying that to you?
I went on a hiking trip. And I had this
like the gateway to therapy.
It's a gateway to therapy. The ranch at Live Oak. It's actually a really great place. It's amazing. You should go. It actually did help me a lot. But I was on the mountain with a guy and I was telling him all that was going on. And he was telling me why I should do ayahuasca and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know about that. And he's like, well, have you gotten therapy? And was asking me all these pointed questions, all of which I was saying no to. And he was like, bro, the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And it was sometimes when somebody gives you a whole lot of truth, it pisses you off. That was one of those moments where it stuck with me for weeks. And he was absolutely right. And the other quote, I was never going to get anywhere if I didn't forgive these 3 damaged people and understand them a little bit. And so if you scratch under the surface of who Larry Boehm was an only child who's had a mom who ran her house with an iron fist and was very cruel at times. So all those years when he saw me, he saw Woody. And so when my father passed away, at the very end, I saw who he was and I had empathy for him. It took me a really long time. And I was with him when he passed. And we had a moment together. And I never knew Larry Boehm until the very end. And I don't blame him anymore. He's definitely a part of my story. He's definitely a part of why I became who I became. But I can look back and look at his patterns now, and it wasn't his fault. It was just the cards he got dealt and the cards we got dealt.
Yeah.
And then with Woody, I always thought that Woody got away with something. And so I look at all 3 of their stories now with a lot of empathy. They were all doing the best they could. And they didn't always show up in the best way, but I haven't always showed up in the best way either.
What would 8-year-old Kevin think about your life today?
Oh man, I think he'd be super proud of me.
I always think kids sort of have these visions of what their life will be like. And the differences of how they play out are really interesting to me. Did you think this was going to be the path?
Well, first of all, going back to your 8-year-old question, it depends on what video you showed 8-year-old Kevin. You could show him the highlight reel of all these years and he'd be like, wow, it's so amazing. Or you could show him the low light reel and he'd be like, what the heck happened, man?
Yeah.
He can watch the whole reel now. Before it's just selected moments, you know, pick which one you want to look at, the high Kevin or the low Kevin. I like it that I'm more of a coaster now, that I'm like, you know, I'm a lot of 7s and 7.5s, and that's just fine.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
If there was a line from your memoir that outlived you, what would you want it to be?
Everyone is responsible, but no one is to blame is a good one.
Yeah.
Like, I think we live in a victim society a lot of times. I think that being self-critical is super important. I think most people think that they're a good person, but I think that most people aren't self-critical. And so you really want to take a good look at yourself and who you are and who you've become. And I think you got to poke holes in that all the time. And I think all of that is within that everyone is responsible, but no one is to blame part. Yes, you were shaped by your parents and you were shaped by your circumstances. But at a certain point, I'm going to take control of my life. And this is an infinite game.
Yeah.
And that means there's no winning and there's no losing, but I'm going to get a little bit better all the time. And that's where I am at in my life right now, is like, what can I do every single year to get a little smarter, a little better, a little bit more empathetic, be a better partner.
You ready for some rapid fire? How much do you tip for bad service?
I never tip lower than 20%. Like,
even if it's really bad.
No, I'm usually, even if it's really bad, like I'm usually like a 30%er.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's 20%, that probably means it was bad.
I was a waitress.
Yes.
And when people tipped cash, I was so grateful. So now I always try and tip cash.
Good on you.
How much do you tip for great service?
30%, 40% sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you tip on the alcohol if you're drinking? It's very kind. Okay, the best dish you've ever eaten.
There was a dish that just caught me at the right moment one time, and it had more umami in it than probably any dish I've ever had in my entire life. And it was warm nishiki rice, and then it was room temperature beef tartare, and then cold Hokkaido uni at the top.
Whoa.
In one shooter, and it was freaking magnificent.
A food you secretly don't like.
I don't like corn chips. Hate corn chips.
Random.
I hate corn chips. I hate the smell of them. I really like Fritos corn chips.
The best food city in America.
Okay. I want to qualify this because food to me is not just food.
Right.
Food to me is a combination of hospitality, and it's a combination of atmosphere and design, and it's a combination of actual food. I'm super biased, but the alchemy of those three things, I don't think anybody does it better than Chicago. And I am in love with the food in so many cities. And I think it varies between Chicago and New York, but right now, the second, I'll give it to Chicago.
I love that you said that because I think about this a lot.
Yes.
And New York has an array of options Chicago doesn't have.
Yes.
Like you can have incredible Jamaican food in New York, incredible Indian food, and there's a bunch of spots you could go to.
Yeah.
But the service isn't the same as in Chicago. Everybody is kind, mostly.
Indeed. Yeah, mostly. It's like, I do think that Chicago is a no bullshit town. And so I think when people are giving great service, it's because they really want you to have a good meal. And I think people feel
the sincerity.
They digest it. It becomes part of the meal.
Something everybody should try once.
Writing their own life story. Whether they publish it or not, sit down, strip all the coats of varnish off of it, and write your life story. You will learn a ton about yourself and your place in the world.
Has it freed you?
100%.
A book that changed your life, something you think everybody should read.
The Tender Bar by J.R. Moringer. I think he's a great writer. It's a great coming of age story. It's a great story about a relationship between the people who raise you and your actual father, and what's more important, having somebody who loves you there. And sometimes that's a team of people, the curated family.
Grab the question everything card game, please. And pick whichever card calls out to you.
What compliment do you hear the most, which means the most to you, and which one makes you the most uncomfortable? I get a lot of compliments about speaking. I speak a lot to groups or at small tables, just the way that I talk to people. But I think that one means a lot to me, like my whole purpose is to make people either feel more comfortable or feel motivated or feel better about themselves. And if all those things happen and I'm able to do that just with words, that makes me really happy. People have been saying stuff about my hair my whole life. I shaved it off recently. I had this long hair my whole life. I think that probably makes me uncomfortable. My business partner, when we won the James Beard Award, actually said, the first thing I'd like to thank is Kevin's hair. It's opened up so many doors for us. So
that's funny. Kevin, thank you. I'm just going to say it's not just on behalf of me. I think you've opened so many doors in this book for healing for people with all sorts of pain. So thank you for your deep honesty.
Well, you pulled a real Barbara Walters on me and made me cry a couple times here today. That doesn't happen very often. But yeah, glad we had some real talk. You know, the one thing in life that I'm completely allergic to is small talk.
Really?
Small talk for a living. You know, that distance, I ran a front door for so many years of my life, and that distance from the front door to the table is almost always about small talk. You can only get into so much during those times. So everything outside of the restaurants, I never want a small talk. I want to get right into it. Let's do it. Religion, sex, relationships, all the taboo subjects. Let's talk.
All the stuff.
All the stuff.
Did you have any go-tos for small talk? Because the weather is the worst one.
I try to stay away from the weather. And I always thought if you ask people a question with a question mark, not a period, you get a real answer.
Yeah.
So the one I would always do is I would just be like, how's your life right now? And people, if you really ask like you cared about it, people will sometimes be able to take it back. You know what? It's pretty great. And I'd be like, well, tell me what's so great about it. So then the follow-up question, they're like, you know what? It's pretty great because my son just went away to college. And he's really happy about his choice. I'm like, that's fantastic. Let's celebrate that tonight. So it would lead to a dialogue piece to where if they're in a bad mood and something just happened, let's try to make it better. And if they said something great, let's figure out how to celebrate that.
That's a good tip.